What's good, everybody? Today I want to talk about 4 DLC guest characters that I think should be considered for Tekken 8. I got the idea to make this video after watching Moonsaltstellar's video a couple months ago titled Harada Wants Guest Characters That Appeal to Younger Audiences. In this video, he goes over a couple of Harada's tweets, and like the title of his video says, it seems like Harada wants guest characters that are more relevant to younger audiences. Now, according to Harada, one of the most important things for a creator/dev when collaborating with other creators is whether or not they can use the collaboration to expand their product. This makes sense because if the collaboration won't help you grow, then why collaborate in the first place? Ever since Tekken 8 came out, I have seen people suggest adding characters that I've never seen before from franchises I've never heard of, and I think this is a bit of a problem. A lot of the characters being suggested won't do anything for Tekken. Harada sort of hints at catering to a younger audience, and if this is in fact their plan for guest characters, then I believe they are on the right track, because this is how I got into fighting games and started my gaming journey. When I was 8 years old, we visited my cousin in France and he had just bought Soul Calibur 4 for the Xbox 360. Me and my brother were Star Wars fans at the time, so when we saw Yoda on the front cover, we wanted to play the game. I fell in love with the game almost immediately. We liked the game so much that me and my brother would stay up late playing long after my cousin had gone to bed. Soul Calibur pretty much became my whole trip. I don't remember where we went while we were in France or what we saw, but I remember the time we spent playing Soul Calibur. When we left France, I managed to convince my mom to get us the game. So later that year, for my birthday, she bought me Soul Calibur 4, which was our first ever game, and an Xbox 360, which was our first ever console. Of course, originally, I only played the game for Yoda, but before I knew it, I had fallen in love with the original Soul Calibur characters, the stages, the music. I became a full-on Soul Calibur fan. I played matches with my friends and family, I played through every character's story, I created new characters and character creation. Eventually, I moved on to other games like FPS games, story-driven games, even LEGO games, but when they announced Soul Calibur 6 in 2017, I got right back into fighting games, and that's ultimately what got me into Tekken, but none of this would have happened if Bandai Namco didn't include Star Wars characters in Soul Calibur 4 back in 2008. Star Wars might not be very relevant today, but at the time it was a very popular franchise. It was genius of them to include Darth Vader, Yoda, and The Apprentice in their game. This is why I feel like I get where Harada's coming from when he talks about adding guest characters that are relevant to younger audiences, because I experienced it. Without this kind of thinking, I might not have become a fighting game fan. Who knows, maybe I wouldn't even be a gamer. The first character that I think would be perfect for Tekken 8 is Ghost from Call of Duty. Call of Duty is a household name. It's the second most played game on Xbox behind Fortnite, and I'm sure it's the same on PlayStation as well. It has a large PC population, the game has a very strong watch culture, Warzone has a lot of viewers on Twitch, and Call of Duty gameplay does well on YouTube. The franchise has been around for a long time, and unlike other first-person shooters that have died out over the years, COD has managed to maintain its popularity and continue to grow. This is a big deal because there are fans, new and old, that love Call of Duty characters, and there is no Call of Duty character more popular and more recognizable than Ghost. People liked Ghost so much in the original Modern Warfare 2 that Infinity Ward tried to start a new trilogy with Call of Duty Ghosts in 2013. The game's campaign was about an entire Ghost team. Unfortunately, it wasn't received very well due to the multiplayer, but the character Ghost remains a fan favorite and was made the face of the new Modern Warfare 2, which released in 2022. I think there are a lot of COD players that would be excited to try Tekken if it meant they could play as one of their favorite characters from their favorite franchise. I also believe having Ghost in Tekken would have a lot of popular COD creators streaming and creating Tekken content. This would bring a lot of new viewers to Tekken and would be another reason for Call of Duty players to try out Tekken. The two franchises are different enough that I think Activision and Microsoft would be down for a collaboration. It's not like Tekken is a first-person shooter competing with Call of Duty. Call of Duty players are 100% gonna buy Call of Duty, but with Ghost and Tekken, they might also buy Tekken. This would increase Tekken's player base and get more eyes on Tekken. I mean, just imagine Scump doing a Tekken 8 Evo Top 6 watch party or something like that. That would be huge. Plus, Ghost being in Tekken could get Japanese players paying attention to a character from a Microsoft-owned IP, and Microsoft has been trying to break into the Japanese market for years. I definitely think if this collaboration were to happen, both parties could walk away with a huge win. I'm not quite sure how Ghost would play. I definitely think he fits because he's a soldier and an assassin. We already have characters like Nina, Anna, and now Victor. They are all close quarter assassin type characters. Nina and Victor even use guns. I would imagine he'd play similar to Dragunov and Nina in the sense that he can strike, but he also has a throw game. Maybe Bandai Namco could take a look at the Call of Duty sandbox and see if they could possibly implement some of it into his move list. Overall, I think this character has so much potential. If they get his visuals down, they get Samuel Rukin to do the voice acting, and they come up with an interesting move list, this character will sell like crazy and grow the scene. One more thing I'd like to add real quick before moving on is that Bandai Namco could do this collaboration whenever, because there's a new Call of Duty game every year and it always sells. Even the worst Call of Duty is one of the best-selling games of the year every single year. So yeah, I feel like they could add Ghost in Season 2, 3, 4, whenever, and it will still work because there will be a new Call of Duty that year, and it will be one of the best-selling games of that year. It seems like it's just one of those games that, no matter what, remains on top. The second character I want to suggest is Yujiro Hanma from Baki the Grappler. Baki is a manga that began in the 90s and is still going. It's very popular and had an anime adaptation in 2001 and recently had a Netflix series as well. Netflix also released a Baki crossover movie this year, Baki Hanma vs Kengan Ashura. So it seems like the creators are interested in getting Baki out there. Baki seems to be pretty popular on YouTube. Content creators are posting videos reviewing newest issues, creating character power level tier lists, even cosplaying. Logan Chitwood has 10 million subs and his whole thing is just being Yujiro. When Tekken 8 first came out, he even released a Tekken G Fuel ad which got like over 80 million views. I think Tekken and Baki collaborating is like a match made in heaven. Both series are very similar. Baki is pretty much just about fighting. There's a father-son conflict, father and son seem to be the strongest in the universe, tons of tournaments, and even a little bit of politics. Some of the characters in Tekken even feel very inspired from Baki. So why Yujiro? I suggested Yujiro over Baki because I think Tekken likes villains. In Tekken 7 they didn't go with Ryu, they went with Akuma. They didn't go with Terry, they went with Geese. Even their protagonists like Kazuya and Jin are morally great, so I feel like if they were to go with someone from Baki, they would go with Yujiro and not Baki himself. Personally, I think what would make Yujiro so cool in Tekken is all the different fighting styles Yujiro has mastered. I'd love to see all those styles implemented into his move list. I feel like he could be an insane stance character, something similar to Lei Wulong but maybe less chaotic and a bit more simplified. But for those of you who are familiar with Baki, imagine Yujiro using every style from the manga in-game, even the whip strike. That would be crazy. Anyway, Baki is super popular, has so many fans, and is such a good fit for Tekken. Honestly, it would be a tragedy if they don't collaborate. The next character on my list is sort of two characters. It's Yuji Itadori and Ryomen Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen is another manga that began in 2018. It also has an anime that began in 2020 and is still ongoing. Jujutsu Kaisen is currently one of the most popular animes. I think it's safe to say that it will be one of this generation's most popular animes. It feels like everyone that's an anime fan has seen it and is waiting for the next season. Jujutsu Kaisen had a video game released this year called Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash. The game doesn't seem to be doing too well. According to Steam, the game's all-time peak player count was over 5,000, and now it's sitting at around 50. But the good news is that the game was published by our very own Bandai Namco. If Bandai Namco was able to get the rights to Jujutsu Kaisen, I'm sure they'd be able to work out a deal to get a Jujutsu Kaisen character in Tekken. As I stated before, Tekken seems to prefer villains over heroes. The cool thing about Yuji is that he has been possessed by Sukuna. In the beginning of Season 1, Yuji eats one of Sukuna's fingers, which turns him into Sukuna's vessel. But Sukuna is unable to gain full control over Yuji. Yuji's able to keep him at bay for the most part until a few episodes later where Yuji makes a deal with Sukuna. This battle for control over Yuji's body is what could make Yuji and Sukuna one of the most interesting Tekken characters ever made. Yuji would basically be a dual personality type character who randomly switches personalities between Yuji and Sukuna. Both personalities would have their own move list. You would basically have to learn to pilot two different characters in order to play the character. And while you're playing, the character you are controlling would basically randomly switch. My inspiration for this type of character comes from Soul Calibur. Tira is a character with a dual personality disorder. In-game, her personalities are two different stances, called Jolly and Gloomy. She switches between the two randomly, but it's not completely random since there are moves that trigger the stance transition, but it's not guaranteed. Sometimes she transitions, sometimes she doesn't. Now, I don't think Yuji and Sukuna have to function exactly the same as Tira with her Jolly and Gloomy stances, but I think something similar to her in Tekken would be really fun. In the show, Yuji's power is basically just punching, so I thought when you're in Yuji's stance, your strengths are aggression, strong mix-ups, good approach tools, but weak counter hit options and weaker combos. But since Sukuna is this godlike sorcerer, in his stance maybe you would have very strong counter hit options, strong combos, maybe even a projectile like Claudio's bow and arrow, but weaker approach tools and weaker mix-ups. Anyway, there are a lot of different things they could do with these characters. These are just my thoughts. In my mind, there is no doubt that Jujutsu Kaisen and Tekken should collaborate. Jujutsu Kaisen would get a lot of new eyes on Tekken, and Tekken would be Jujutsu Kaisen's first big entry into the video game world. The last character on my list is one that I don't feel super strongly about, but I think as of right now could still do a lot for Tekken, and that character is Octane from Apex Legends. Apex is a battle royale / hero shooter that came out in 2019. It was pretty much on top for many years. Recently, the player count seems to be going down and the community has been very critical of the game. With that being said, it is still one of the most played games on consoles and it is always in the top 10 most played games on Steam. Even though the player count has significantly dropped, the game's 24-hour peak is still over 200,000. That's crazy to think about. 200,000 is what Apex has fallen down to. I mean, most games never even see 50,000 all-time peak. So while the game isn't doing great by its own standards, it is still doing well. The question is, will the developers be able to turn things around or will it continue to bleed players? The reason I have suggested Octane is because according to the game's character usage data, he has consistently been one of the most popular characters in Apex. He had the #1 spot longer than any other character and was usually only ever knocked down when a new character was added to the game. Octane has a very charismatic and also silly personality, something that I think Tekken lacks a bit. I love Tekken characters, but some of them aren't very developed, especially when compared to the Mishimas. Octane is like a mix of Lee and Azucena, and I think his big personality would be a very nice addition to Tekken. As far as gameplay goes, I have a few ideas. Octane is a daredevil who used to do stunts. He had an accident which cost him his legs, this is why he has prosthetics. He uses a chemical stimulant which allows him to move extremely fast for a short period of time. Octane is actually one of Apex's main movement legends because players that have mastered the game's movement mechanics are able to take full advantage of Octane's kit. If brought over to Tekken, I think it would be cool to maintain his identity as a movement character. I think they should make his heat behave similarly to his stim. Every time he enters heat, he injects himself, and what's unique about Octane's heat is that he has faster movement in every direction. So his backward movement is faster, his sideways movement, forward movement is all faster. I can totally see why this might be broken, it's just a thought, but Tekken does have characters with unique movement abilities like Yoshimitsu. I think what they would have to do though is, in order to balance it out, maybe nerf Octane's damage or something like that. Or you know what they could also do actually, is make it like an Apex, so every time he goes into heat, he loses a little bit of health. Overall, I think Octane can be a great addition to Tekken. Apex Legends is still one of the top shooters. Tekken and Apex are far enough from one another in terms of genre that I don't think EA would view Tekken as a competitor. Octane could definitely bring in a lot of new players as one of the most popular characters in Apex Legends. Tekken players who haven't played Apex would be introduced to the game. I also think for the Apex community, this collaboration would be considered positive news, which I think Apex and EA could really use right now. The main issue is that Apex is still relevant at the moment, but who knows, if nothing changes, by next year the game could be in a much worse state. If I just chose characters that I like, I would have suggested Raphael from Soul Calibur, Master Chief from Halo, and, I don't know, the Joker. But Halo and Soul Calibur are irrelevant, and because of Warner Bros' relationship with NetherRealm, I feel like they wouldn't want to give one of their most iconic characters to another fighting game. To be honest, if I could actually have it my way, there wouldn't be any guest characters at all. I don't play Tekken in hopes of them adding a character that I like that's from some other franchise. I like Tekken characters, and I play Tekken to play as Tekken characters. But I understand how important guest characters are for fighting games. I've seen a couple of videos of people suggesting guest characters, and I feel like most people are suggesting characters they are fans of and not necessarily characters that will help Tekken grow. While I'm sure they're all great characters and I'm sure they'd even sell well, I don't think they would do much in terms of growing the scene. We aren't just looking for sales, even though sales are important, we're looking to bring in new Tekken players. Tekken 7 DLC definitely sold well to Tekken players, but how many new players did it bring in? As cool as Geese Howard was, apparently JDCR didn't even know who he was, and he's like 11 years older than I am. If it wasn't for Tekken, I would have no idea who Geese is, who Akira is, or even who Tifa is. I don't think that the characters I've chosen are objectively the right characters. I tried to pick characters that will grow the player base and also be a good fit for Tekken. I also tried to pick characters that I feel like could have interesting game plans and playstyles. I think Tekken could use more characters like Yoshimitsu, Xiaoyu, Brian, King, characters that have their own unique identities. Sometimes I feel like characters have the same tools, down forward 1, down forward 2, hop kick. I think having more unique characters is healthy for Tekken and makes the game more interesting. I hope my suggestions make sense even if you're not really feeling them. Thanks for watching the video. Please comment down below what characters you would like to see in Tekken 8 and let me know why. And have a great day.